Main event of the evening.
These days are
Hello and welcome to These Days Are Ours, a Happy Days podcast. I'm Peter.
And I'm Joe.
And today we are discussing Season 7, Episode 8, Burlesque.
Okay, Peter, tell us what happens in Burlesque.
We open at the Cunningham house, where Howard is stressing out over the upcoming Leopard Lodge burlesque show he's organizing, and in which he and Al are performing.
Oh, Howard, please calm down. Now, this Leopard Lodge show is just making you a nervous wreck.
It is not, Marion. I'm as calm as a clam.
If it's a big hit, he has a chance of winning Grand Poobah in the upcoming elections, and then he can finally wear the Grand Poobah hat he bought 20 years ago. Richie, who is going over the tickets, says that with every seat having been sold, Howard will be a shoo-in. Howard can't help but worry, though, because comedian Irv Hansen was supposed to call him, and he hasn't.
He was supposed to call me at 8 o'clock, and look, it's 5 after 8. Now, why hasn't he called?
Marion sends him upstairs to practice his Grand Poobah acceptance speech. The doorbell rings. It's Irv Hansen and performer Lola LaGrange.
Say something, honey. Make a noise.
Hi!
The rest of the troupe is snowed in Buffalo, though hopefully they'll be able to get a bus out tonight. Irv got out because he travels early with the pops and the costumes. The next day, right as the burlesque show is about to begin, the troupe still hasn't arrived.
Where's the troupe now?
They just left Buffalo, but I don't take much stock in them getting here, I'll tell you that.
Oh, my.
Ralph tries to impress Irv with a joke that doesn't land.
What has 4 legs and chases cats?
I don't know, it's got 4 legs and chases cats.
Mrs. Katz and her lawyer.
Potsy apologizes for his roommate. Then upon hearing that Irv sometimes hires singers, starts singing, "There's no business like show business." Howard, worried because the troupe still hasn't arrived, confronts Irv, who says they'll be here. The show is about to begin, and Howard has to go on stage. Howard introduces the show.
Welcome to the Leopard Lodge's presentation of Burlesque America, starring Irv Hansen and his wonderful troupe of comics and cuties.
Then performs the song Top Banana, which segues into a comedy routine with Irv.
Hey, what are you doing out here? I'm trying to sing.
That's all right, you ain't bothering me. Go right ahead.
Next up, Al plays the ukulele as Lola does a striptease behind him.
And you are heaven to me.
As Howard tries to introduce the rest of the troupe, Richie calls him backstage so everyone can explain that the troupe still isn't there. Howard thinks he's through at the Leopard Lodge.
There goes my golden fez.
There's lots of other lodges, dear. There must be ones that never heard of you.
But Richie has an idea. Irv has all the costumes. Why can't they and their friends do the show? Howard protests that they need lots of beautiful girls, and no one could get that many girls on short notice. Then Fonzie strolls in.
Nobody could get that many girls.
The show goes right back on, opening with a skit where Fonzie and Richie play Dr. Livingston and Stanley in the jungle.
Get a hold of yourself, Livingston! Please! Stop those drums! 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 Stop! Thank you.
Then Posse sings Girl of All Nations with several backup dancers.
Girl of all nations, you're tantalizing.
Then Ralph and Fonzie perform DeLovely, with Fonzie only singing the It's.
It's delightful. It's delicious. It's lovely.
Then Howard, Marion, Irv, and Fonzie do a restaurant sketch.
Here we are, my dear, in what is supposed to be one of the finest restaurants in town. And since this is the opening night, you know the food must be fresh.
Who shot the drapes?
Then the entire cast performs Top Banana.
If you wanna be a top banana, you gotta start at the bottom of the bunch.
The next night, Al comes to the Cunningham house to tell Howard that because of the success of the burlesque show, the Leopard Lodge has decided to install Howard as the Grand Poobah. Howard puts on his Poobah hat.
As long as I hold this honor, I shall wear this with pride and dignity.
And it's so big that it falls over his eyes.
Thank you, Peter. That was Burlesque. It first aired back on November 6, 1979. Happy Days was followed by a new Angie, in which Angie's old flame, Vinny, pays her a visit and shows that he's still romantically interested in her. NBC had a new episode of The Misadventures of Sheriff Lobo. This week was a crossover with BJ and the Bear, in which BJ is the prime suspect in a casino heist, and his many enemies, including Lobo, are trying to catch him and nab a huge cash reward.
Lobo, he's tough. He's a brute.
And CBS had a new episode of California Fever, in which Ross enters an unusual car contest, but his rival doesn't want him to claim any awards. This episode features a guest appearance by Robert Englund, just a few years before he played Freddy Krueger.
Sorry, kid. I don't believe in fairy tales.
So, Peter, of those choices, what are you watching?
The promise of an unusual car contest and the future Freddy Krueger is enough to make me say that I'm watching California Fever.
I have to see Robert Englund interact with the California Fever gang. Burlesque was directed by Jerry Paris and was written by the team of Anthony DeMarco and David Ketchum. Tony and Dave wrote a lot of Happy Days episodes. The most recent of their shows that we've covered was Fonzie Meets Cat. Many of the jokes and sketches in this episode actually go back to the days of Burlesque. So I think Tony and Dave had a pretty light week of writing this week.
I had a pretty easy time writing the summary this week because I could just briefly summarize the actual sketches. I have to imagine that for them it was pretty easy. I mean, this was in the days before copy and paste, but they could just transcribe old sketches.
I'm sure that was basically 90% of their writing process for this episode. As for guest stars, we have a couple of biggies this week. Let's start with Irving Benson as Irv Hansen. Irving was a comedian and occasional actor from New York. He was born in Brooklyn in 1914 and started singing and dancing when he was just a child. By the 1930s, he was touring the country as a comedian on the vaudeville circuit. He also did numerous burlesque shows where he appeared alongside strippers. He started appearing on TV in the 1960s and was frequently hired by fellow ex-vaudeville star Milton Berle.
Why are you applauding? I didn't say anything.
That's why I'm applauding.
Irv also appeared on The Tonight Show, Here's Lucy, and The Merv Griffin Show. He eventually became known as one of the last living vaudeville stars, and there was a documentary about him in 2010.
Come along with Irv Benson as he returns one last time to the biggest of the big-time vaudeville houses, New York's Palace Theater.
Never forget World War II. Would you believe that an Italian girl hid me in a cellar for 2 years?
2 years? Where were you?
In Cleveland.
Irving Benson died in 2016 at the age of 102. So, Peter, what did you think of Irving Benson as Irv Hansen?
He made a lot of quips in this episode, and I think that he was very good at saying them conversationally, saying them as casually as one might say anything else. And I think that worked pretty well for his character. And I imagine it's because he had a lot of practice with quips.
Well, as you can see from his character name, Irv Hansen, it's not really that far from his real name, Irving Benson.
Yeah, he is basically playing himself.
I'm fascinated with old-timey show business, and I like the idea of this vaudeville and burlesque veteran appearing on Happy Days. We also have an uncredited Cassandra Peterson as Lola LaGrange. Cassandra is an actress from Manhattan, Kansas, best known for playing horror hostess Elvira, Mistress of the Dark.
Don't blink, because it'll be Halloween soon. And just think, this year it's on a full moon.
We simultaneously have a glimpse of the past of entertainment with Irv Hansen and a glimpse of the future of entertainment with Elvira.
Elvira absolutely is on Happy Days. People should know that. She started portraying Elvira on Los Angeles television in 1981, using a Valley Girl voice she had developed as a member of the LA improv troupe, The Groundlings. Cassandra had very few screen credits before Happy Days, with only small parts in Diamonds Are Forever, The Working Girls, and Fellini's Roma. After this, she had a few non-Elvira roles in films and TV. Her movies include Stroker Ace, The Sting 2, Cheech and Chong's Next Movie, and Pee-wee's Big Adventure. She's in the biker bar scene.
I say you let me have him first.
On TV, she guested on Chips, Alice, St. Elsewhere, Fantasy Island, and Harper Valley PTA, but it's mainly been Elvira since 1981, including the movies Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, and Elvira's Haunted Hills.
Elvira!
Entertainer extraordinaire.
See Elvira stretch herself as an actress in her most challenging role.
I just love butterflies ever so much.
Plus, countless commercials, specials, video games, personal appearances, and much more. What did you think of Cassandra Peterson as Lola LaGrange in this episode?
They should have given her more to do. She doesn't really do much except say hi during the scene with Irv Hansen and the striptease scene with Al. The striptease scene was pretty amusing. The joke in that one is that everyone is watching Lola strip and they're cheering for her, and Al playing the ukulele thinks that they're cheering for him until the very end, which is pretty amusing.
I was actually impressed that Cassandra gets quite a lot of screen time in this episode. She's not actually saying anything, but she's always standing next to Irv Hansen. So she's on camera for quite a long time, and she does get a sort of showcase during the burlesque show. I thought she did more than enough to merit an on-screen credit. I thought she should have gotten one.
Yeah! Bullshit that they didn't credit her. It's BS.
Yeah. As for songs this week, Anson Williams sings a bit of There's No Business Like Show Business.
There's no business like show business. No.
This song was written in 1946 by Irving Berlin for the musical Annie, Get Your Gun. Top Banana is performed by Tom Bosley.
If you want to be a top banana, you gotta start from the bottom of the bun.
and reprised by the entire cast. This is a song written by Johnny Mercer for the 1951 musical Top Banana, a vehicle for comedian Phil Silvers.
If you want to be the top banana, you got to start at the bottom of the bunch. You got to learn the joke about the farmer's daughter and take it in a kisser with the soda water.
Phil won a Tony for that part in 1952. And hang on, because we will eventually meet Phil Silvers on this show.
Yeah, we will.
Al Molinaro sings Blue Hawaii with Cassandra Peterson dancing in the background. Written by Leo Robin and Ralph Ranger, this song is closely associated with Elvis Presley, who covered it in 1961 on the soundtrack of the movie Blue Hawaii.
Night and you and blue Hawaii.
But it actually goes all the way back to a 1937 movie musical called Waikiki Wedding, starring Bing Crosby.
Night and you and blue Hawaii.
That sounds extremely racially sensitive and not at all offensive.
Anson Williams performs Girl of All Nations. This is another song by Johnny Mercer, albeit an obscure one. It was written for a Broadway show apparently in the 1950s, but not used. Did you have any opinion on Anson's Girl of All Nations song?
I thought it was kind of weird that Joni was one of the girls of all nations, much in the same way that I thought it was weird that she was the girl who was holding the cue cards while also wearing this sparkly blue bathing suit, because Joni is 17 at this point in the show. So I think it's kind of weird that Howard would be okay with this. In the Magic Show episode, she was wearing this sparkly red leotard thing, but that feels less sexualized somehow, I guess because it was just a magic show and not a burlesque show.
For some reason, Howard is very enthusiastic for Joni to appear in this burlesque show. I doubt that he actually would be, but that's the way he's written this week.
It's inconsistent with his character where, like, in an earlier episode, he was like, hey, you can't wear your pajamas in the living room because you look like a pinup girl.
Yeah, that was just a couple of weeks ago. Donnie Most and Henry Winkler sing It's DeLovely. Cole Porter wrote this for the 1936 musical Red Hot and Blue, where it was performed by Ethel Merman and Bob Hope.
Take it away, all the night is long, the skies are clear, and if you want to go walking, dear, it's delightful, it's delicious, it's lovely.
I feel like this performance of DeLovely might have been some kind of shout out to Sing from a chorus line, which came out in 1975. In the song Sing, the wife is kind of talk singing through the song, and then her husband will sing one word each, and he's a much better singer than she is.
I really couldn't sing. I could never really sing. What I couldn't do was
sing.
I have trouble with a note. It goes all around my head. It's terrifying.
Sing.
And in this performance, that's kind of inverted, where Ralph Malph is doing most of the singing, and Fonzie, who, bless his heart, Henry Winkler cannot sing, just does the it's. It's delightful, it's delicious, it's delovely.
Which is all really that he should do. Donnie Most has quite a nice singing voice, so I was glad.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's a reason he's released multiple albums.
As for cultural and historical references this week, this entire episode is built around a burlesque show.
They got a big theater they call a Burlesque. For 50 cents you can see a dandy show.
The term burlesque indicates a parody of a serious work, and is derived from the Italian word for joke.
Burla. Joke.
In Victorian England in the 1800s, burlesque shows were mildly risque musical theater productions that parodied grand operas and the plays of Shakespeare. That type of Victorian burlesque was imported to America and evolved into a new form of burlesque that combines striptease routines with ribald low comedy sketches. Comedians like Abbott Costello, W.C. Fields, Mae West, Jackie Gleason, Danny Thomas, Burt Lahr, Red Skelton, Fanny Brice, Phil Silvers, and more worked in burlesque, as did strippers like Lily St. Cyr, Blaze Starr, and Sally Rand. Burlesque basically died out in the 1940s and was replaced by sleazier striptease shows. So a traditional burlesque show like the one we see here would have been nostalgic by 1961 when the story is taking place.
So this episode is kind of nostalgia within nostalgia.
Definitely. Marion offers Howard a glass of warm milk to calm him down. Scientifically speaking, there is no chemical evidence that warm milk has a calming effect or can encourage sleep. The likely answer is that people associate warm milk with the safety of childhood, and this creates a feeling of overall well-being.
We're out of coffee. Well, I'll just drink this warm cream.
Joni says that Howard hasn't been this upset since Annette left the Mouseketeers. But in truth, Annette Funicello stayed with the Mickey Mouse Club for the entire run of that series from 1955 to 1959. When it came time to tape the finale, Annette said, "I never cried so hard in my life." After her Mouseketeer days, Annette continued to work in Disney productions like the TV show Zorro.
I've traveled far and wide. I've been on a merry chase. And so it's good to see the smile on your happy face.
And the movie The Shaggy Dog. So Annette never left the Mouseketeers.
So do you think Happy Days is taking place in an alternate history where Annette Funicello left the Mouseketeers before the show ended?
I think there is a popular misconception that Annette left the Mouseketeers. So I think it just might be a false memory that a lot of people have. Backstage at the Leopard Lodge, we see a poster for a stage production of A Streetcar Named Desire. This play by Tennessee Williams premiered on Broadway in December 1947 with Jessica Tandy as Blanche and Marlon Brando as Stanley.
Hey, Stella!
The term top banana, which now means the leading person in any group or organization, goes back to the Burlesque theater, where it meant the top billed comedian in the show. Originally, the term was first banana. During his Burlesque days, Irving Benson worked his way up to top banana status. Supposedly, the term originated with a popular sketch in which the leading comedian was given a banana after delivering the punchline. Apparently, there was a hierarchy of comedians in burlesque. First banana, second banana, and third banana.
1 banana, 2 banana, 3 banana, 4 bananas make a bunch and so do many more.
Irving Benson makes a lot of jokes about his wife in this episode.
I shouldn't talk about my wife like that because today happens to be her birthday.
Oh, what are you getting for her?
Make me an offer.
But in fact, the comedian was married to the same woman, Lillian Benson, for 80 years.
Oh, wow. I hope their marriage was a happy one, and she wasn't bothered by the jokes.
I don't think she would have stuck around for 80 years if she really was. In the Jungle Madness sketch, Fonzie and Richie play Dr. David Livingston and journalist Henry Morton Stanley, respectively. We just talked about these guys in our review of Marion Goes to Jail. Basically, Livingston was a missionary who was presumed lost in Africa until Stanley found him in 1871. Unfortunately, by then, Livingston was very ill and near the end of his life.
I got lost looking for the elephant graveyard. Elephant graveyard? Yes, when an elephant feels like he's going to die, he takes a long journey over thousands and thousands of miles.
And for the record, elephant graveyards are a myth.
No, you see, that's just a myth.
Yeah, but she's my myth.
No, myth.
Yeah.
It is a common legend that elephants go to a special place to die, but this has no basis in fact. Other observations this week. Where does one go to buy a Grand Poobah hat? You'd think that the Leopard Lodge would just provide one to the actual Grand Poobah. I don't get how the system works, Peter. What do you think?
I don't know. My assumption is that Howard was so excited that he couldn't wait for them to give him a Grand Poobah hat when he became the Grand Poobah, so he just went out and got one so that he could wear it sometimes and pretend he was the Grand Poobah. Probably for like a specialty hat store or something.
What's the number one complaint we all have about hat stores? They are boring.
It looks like something he made himself, though.
It kind of does. It's not a very well-made hat.
Howard's easy chair is gone for a second week. I'm starting to get worried. And I think this is the latest Fonzie has ever appeared in a Happy Days episode, a full 12 minutes in before we get him.
Oh, yeah, but it is one heck of an intro.
This is another one of those Fonzie steps in at the last minute to save the whatever episodes.
Everyone does their part, not just Fonzie.
This is definitely an ensemble episode. So, Peter, were there any outstanding Happy Days fashions this week?
I loved Howard's glittery black and white suit jacket. It's got these stripes that are kind of like tiger stripes. Although I guess with the black and white, it's more like zebra stripes. But it looks amazing.
That was a pretty good looking jacket. Tom Bosley definitely rocks it.
And I'm glad that we got to hear Tom Bosley sing, because he has a Tony Award for Best Actor in a Musical for Fiorello.
So, Peter, I will ask that age-old, timeless question. Was this episode any good?
It was fine. It was pretty fun. It was mildly funny. But generally, I think it was pretty inconsequential. There were some fun parts in it. And Chachi wasn't in it for too much, except for one very creepy joke exchange with Joni, where he says, "Hey, do you know why you're so popular with the boys?" And she names some things, and none of them are the answer. And then when she says, "I give up," he says, "That's why she's so popular." And he grabs her. And it was very creepy. And I don't know why they did that.
I think Burlesque is basically just the magic show with magic crossed out and burlesque written in.
Pretty much.
Even down to having a ringer in the episode. In that one, they brought in a real magician. In this one, they brought in a real vaudeville comic. Fonzie, in both cases, steps in to save the show at the last minute. I think it was because they had fun doing the magic show, and they were like, well, what else can we do? How about a burlesque show? And then I started thinking that the Happy Days gang are real theatrical impresarios. They have staged, Peter, a rodeo, a demolition derby, a magic show, and multiple concerts and plays. So what else haven't they done? I can't think of another kind of entertainment that they could conceivably put on that they haven't done already.
Later on, there's going to be a senior musical with Joni and Chachi as the leads.
Oh, okay. But they've done plays. I mean, they just did a play last week.
True. Although, have they ever done a stage musical?
Not yet. I guess they technically haven't done that. They've also done, of course, beauty contests. The Cunninghams just love to put on a show.
That's not even getting into all the costume parties.
As you said, this episode is really inconsequential. I didn't even know what they were raising the money for.
Yeah, they didn't even bother to make up a charity. I guess so the Leopard Lodge can get new hats?
Possibly. For the magic show, they brought in orphans, and they didn't bother doing that this time. I guess tough luck, orphans. You don't get any of this burlesque money. But this episode is fun. It's the whole cast singing and dancing and putting on skits, and Fonzie pretending to kill a fly. That's kind of an old bit, pretending to kill the fly. That's just a sound effect. It's very much like attending a sketch night at any school or organization that might put these on, but with professional caliber actors and actresses. So maybe better than what you could get at your local high school or Kiwanis or something.
But without the brief emotional flash of, that's my friend/relative that you get when you see your friend/relative performing.
Well, these are our TV friends, Peter.
Yeah. These are the fictional characters we have attached parasocial importance to.
That is the reason to watch Burlesque, to see these characters that you've come to know and love, singing and dancing their hearts out, all for you. So go ahead and watch Burlesque if you have a half hour to kill, but don't make it a priority. Don't go out of your way to watch Burlesque.
And then go listen to Donnie Most's Swing album. It's pretty good.
So, Peter, how can people keep up with us and find out about all the wonderful things that we are doing?
Listeners can follow us on Twitter at Fonzie Podcast. They can follow me on Twitter at Peter Volfranc. That's PeterVulfranc.
And they can follow me on Twitter at Joe_A_Blevins. They can find this podcast online at thesedaysareours.libsyn.com. And they can email us with questions, comments, and concerns at thesedaysareourspodcast@gmail.com. So, Peter, what do we have on the docket for next week?
Well, next week, Joni considers posing nude for a photographer. Joni, who is 17 years old. Oh, God. It's called Joni Busts Out. It's not going to be good.
I hate even saying the title. So, see you later, alligator.
In a while, crocodile.
Thank you.